Right, so you can all see that this was all done through configuration, and we were able to get out an activity guide so that students can indicate whether they need laptops or not. But shortly thereafter, problem number three actually came up, because even having laptops, we still have some students who don't have access to data. So outside of the scope of Campus Solutions, UCT negotiated with some of the mobile providers in the country and came up with a sort of an agreement where mobile data can be made available to specific students. The catch here, however, is that obviously if a student does not need the mobile data, we need to provide a mechanism for them to opt out. So if you already have this fantastic uncapped fiber package, we need to give you the ability to opt out, A, and B, as a courtesy, just at least show our appreciation for opting out through all of this. So all this requirement really happened quickly one morning, and we said, right, now we need, everything's in place. We've got the mobile providers on board, or the cell phone providers on board. How are we going to manage this? And again, taking a config first approach, we thought about a way that we can simply use an existing construct within Campus Solutions to capture this field, and also just allow students to, well, to do that themselves, to capture this themselves through self-service. So as you all know, there's, or some of you might know, there's some configurable personal biographical attributes that you can use for this. And in a matter of minutes, we were able to basically dedicate one of these attributes to be used exactly for this purpose. So you've got a little bit of a sneak peek there on the right-hand side. I'll take you through more of the details of this soon. So what you would do is, there's the navigation for this. You can navigate, and this is provided that you're using the Fluid functionality, which UCT has fully rolled out, or Fluid self-service. So you would navigate to your normal setup SACR common definitions, all the way through to personal details configuration. What you need to do at this point is simply allocate. Asanda. Okay, let me just mute you quickly. Okay, so what you need to do is you need to allocate one of these placeholders, and obviously these placeholders, they don't have a context yet. So what this configuration screen then allows you to do is to associate a message catalog entry with this in order to kind of provision this as a mobile data bundle field used for the capturing purposes of this. So on this screen, you can see at the bottom, there's a message catalog entry, which resembles a header on the page that you can configure. And then within this, we can use the field, sorry, just moving on, we can take the biographical attribute one field and allocate that to a mobile data required label. The blank warning is quite an interesting setting there, because if you do allocate or select that, then it allows a student to see with one single glance that there's data missing, there's information missing, and we need the information from you. So quite handy in this context. Right, so I'm cheating a little bit here because it was 99.9% config, and it's arguable whether translate values are indeed development or config. But at the end of the day, the only debatable or borderline situation is adding the translate value. So in this case, having picked the biographical attribute 1, we simply had to add translate values, which in this case would indicate or resolve to a yes, I want mobile data, or no, I don't want mobile data. Right, so the end product of this, and as you can imagine, done quite quickly, was the ability for a student to log into self-service and have the ability to be able to opt out. What we've done is we've automatically opted in all students that are currently enrolled, and then we sent out, using, like Siobhan explained, notification framework, just a quick notification to say, listen, UCT student, you've got the option of free mobile data, but if you don't really need this, please do go on to self-service, and please do just opt out so that this can be better allocated for somebody else, somebody who needs it more than you do. Right, so there's the drop down there. And the next challenge that we had here, so we had the mechanism now to capture this, and this was all done very quickly. But the next challenge here was the director, the ICT director at UCT was very persistent about the fact that we need to thank the students for this. It's not just the normal, I've just changed my name. It's not the same thing. We really want to show appreciation. So yes, I mean, we can go ahead and we can, the moment you change this, we can always customize the component, or there's different ways to approach this. But I want to show you a nice, elegant way of actually achieving this. If I was standing here in front of you telling you, you can go and customize it here, I think we're kind of defeating the purpose of this entire session. So the magic bullet here is simply the event mapping framework. Yes, you do need to develop a little bit, but at the end of the day, it's configuration to plug this into the existing configuration with absolutely zero impact on your customizations. The event mapping framework, and for the benefit of our non-campus solutions audience members like Bernard, for example, here on the HCM side of things, this is a PeopleSoft construct and not a campus solutions construct. So you should be able to use this in any of the PeopleSoft product lines. Right, little code snippet, and that's it. That's the only thing that you would basically write there in Application Designer. Simple check just to determine whether you need mobile data or not, and you plug that in with the end product being a simple pop-up. After you've indicated that you don't need mobile data, it just gives a nice in-your-face pop-up that says, thank you very much. We can allocate these resources elsewhere. Right, so I think another good example of how config really addressed an immediate, quick requirement in all of this. Right, Paul, I see we are getting close to the end, but I think we are close to wrap up. Let's maybe just take it through the last process as well.
Okay, great. Thanks, Rowan. Right, so as I said earlier, we had to allow curriculum changes. Some of our students needed to drop courses, cancel entire registrations, go on leave of absence, and we don't allow that right now. We don't allow students to drop or swap or do anything with the enrollment records themselves via self-service. So we had to come up with a different way, everyone being at home. So we used service request management below GRM research management. That ties into the rules engine. We basically use the rules to just navigate the workflow from the student to an administrator, and we plug that into a work center to for the administrative staff to see what's assigned to them, once the students submit those requests via self-service. And I think, Ruan, you taking us through the config, right?
Perfect, thanks, Paul. So I think I just want to re-emphasize what Paul has just said. So UCT has been one of the early graduate research management adopters, and as part of that, originally intended for that is service requests, which is at the end of the day, a generic piece of functionality that it allows a simple sort of mechanism where a student can request something and it gets actioned by a staff member in the back end. Again, no development required for all of this, so all configuration. So what a perfect mechanism exactly to do this sort of thing. So a student, again, logs into the self-service, which they are accustomed to. They request a service request, or they initiate the service request from there, and then that simply needs to end up at a back office staff member or faculty or whoever the case might be. Now, the challenge in all of this is simply the workflow behind this, because how do we know, it's easy to configure a service request, but how do we actually route this to the correct person? Out of the box, service request does provide some sort of a very simple mechanism for mapping certain request types and subtypes to a specific user. However, it's a little bit restricted. Paul will explain to you as well. It was a bit more of a complex situation where if you're an undergrad by this program, then you need to end up there. Or if it's a postgrad or undergrad second year, they need to end up elsewhere. So it gets complex. So what a better tool to use in the context of all of this than the rules engine? And luckily, the rules engine already forms a very large part of the service request functionality in all of this. Right, on the left-hand side, you will see that there's a delivered service request rule category, and within that, there's a service request assigned to rule. My second screenshot is hiding this a bit, but I've created a second version of this, which then allows us, without customizing, to actually expand on this logic and do all sorts of branching that really, the sky's the limit here. As long as we get the impl ID, we know who this is, we can really make decisions on the fly there to determine where does this actually end up. So my time's a bit limited now, but the rules engine really allows us to, through configuration, to express this sort of logic at the end of the day to make sure this ends up with the correct person in the middle of all of this. Now, one last point, and then I'm actually going to move over to the question and answer section of this. Service request functionality does allow for, there's a delivered dashboard that you can actually use to pick up on everything. So this, I wouldn't say this is a mandatory piece of configuration that was done, but I think this is something quite nice that Paul has configured here to complement this sort of solution. So a lot of you might have worked with work centers in the past. Or you need to implement a work center, which, sorry, I'm just going to take a step back. What a work center effectively does is it provides you with a way to see a left-hand pane with links or a list of students or a list of arbitrary elements that you want to work on. And by clicking on that, you have the ability to work on that list on the right-hand side, hence work centers. So the configuration of these work centers is quite simple. It involves a query in the first place, which is simple to create, a pagelet to be created from this, and then simply a work center page to be configured from that. So just a little sneak peek on this one before I move over to the question and answers. So instead of using the delivered work center, dashboard functionality, we have a more intuitive, sort of friendly view of the exact same back-end data, but allowing the administrative staff to work on these items that need to be worked on. So much more of an elegant sort of flow from students requesting something through self-service all the way through to the correct person in the back end that can process this request at the end of the day. And all of this is also ties in with the notification framework that Siobhan has raised earlier on, where notifications are received on reassignment of these service requests as well. Right, so I think to conclude, we've covered 3 different areas that really during the COVID lockdown and even prior to this, we were challenged with things that had to change. This is not all of it. I mean, there's a lot on the tuition calculation side, and there's a lot of things, but I think what makes this special is the fact that we could have made the decision here to develop something which we didn't have time, or alternatively to think out of the box and use our existing investments in campus solutions to implement this sort of functionality quickly and rapidly as suggested. So I'm actually going to